How's it going, everybody? It's Sam here, and welcome back to the Morbid Veil. Today we have a story of tragedy, heroism, and an ice-cold vendetta. But first, if you haven't seen the previous build in our series, The Grave Rider, then click the pop-up now to view it. Now let's take a stride down the freezing path of the Frostborn. Thousands of years ago, during the Merethic era, Knut Eriksson lived in the city of Labyrinthian, a massive Nord city built within a mighty mountain. His father Eric worked as a stonemason for the dragon cult, and his mother Hildred raised him alone. One day, as the children were playing outside, one of the dragon priests came and demanded that 3 of them come with him. None of the 8 children approached him, and so he had his guards seize 3 of them, one of which was Knut. The dragon priest took the children to another city in the east called Windhelm, and there he would perform experiments on the children, infusing them with different serums which he had concocted using ice wraith teeth and venom. Each child suffered horrible side effects, from vomiting to week-long paralysis. For over 10 years, the dragon priest experimented on the children until they died. Many more children had been brought to him during that time, but only Knut seemed to survive the countless experiments. One day, the dragon priest had to try his latest 2 serums, and only 2 children were left. As the dragon priest injected the serum into Knut, he began to convulse. The ice wraith concoction ripped through his veins like arrows through flesh. And by the end, Knut's eyes had turned completely white, his hair had fallen out, and he no longer felt the cold. For the most part, the dragon priest was excited, but the wide eyes and baldness seemed to be an issue. He injected the other boy with a slightly different serum, but he did not convulse. His eyes did not change, nor did his hair fall out. The priest asked the boy how he felt, and the boy answered that he was warm. As the dragon priest examined the boy and asked him more questions about his physical state, a loud voice came from outside. The dragon priest rushed out, and Knut quietly followed. Alduin, the World Eater, had come to see the priest's progress on the serum. Knut overheard their entire conversation, and discovered that this dragon priest was trying to make a serum to help their people become more resilient to the cold. When the priest told Alduin of his success, the World Eater roared in delight. He congratulated the dragon priest and gave him a mask along with a new name, Dukan. The dragon priest got to his feet and asked what he should do with Knut, and Alduin ordered that he be destroyed. But Knut, upon hearing this, hid in a crack within the walls of the city. The entire city was searching for him, and once night fell, Knut fled into the wilderness for safety. For over 5 years, he hid in the forests, living off of deer, elk, and ice wraith teeth. He was eventually discovered by a group of rogues as they moved south. The leader of the party, known as Bjorn the Axe King, offered Knut a place in his ranks, and reluctantly he accepted. For the next decade, Knut fought as their fiercest warrior, earning the nickname Ice Wraith because of his frequent use of ice wraith venom on his weapons. One night, a frost dragon attacked. While everyone else was frozen in place, Knut could still move. He got close enough, and with a mighty swing, he killed the dragon. As his friends began to thaw out, something strange happened, and Knut absorbed the soul of the dragon. The party was amazed at what they had just seen, but their excitement was short-lived, as Mirmolnir arrived just in time to witness the event. He unleashed his Thuum and began burning everyone and everything. As for Knut, He took his wife Sarah and ran further into the woods. However, Mirmulnir would not let them escape, and pursued them until they could no longer run. The mighty dragon knocked back the two, and in front of Canute, swallowed Sarah whole. The rage that built up in Canute was so powerful that he unleashed a devastating scream that caused the dragon soul he absorbed to burst all around him. Mirmulnir was wounded, but when he looked, he saw only a mountain of ice. He presumed that Canute was dead, but in truth, he was not. For thousands of years, Canute was trapped inside the mountain of ice, unconscious and dreaming of a better life. As the millennia went on, the lands began to change, and the southern area which Canute was in began to grow warm. Eventually, he was freed from his icy prison, but still unconscious. When he finally awoke, he was on a cart with people in strange clothes, each with a pale complexion like his. Canute had lost many of his memories, including his own name. All he remembered were the experiments, the dragon priest mask, the death of his wife, and brief moments of that icy prison. So when asked who he was, he gave a name that seemed fitting, Frostborn. In a strange new world, with his wife gone, all the Frostborn wanted was death, and so he gladly placed his head on the chopping block. But as he did, Alduin arrived and inadvertently saved his life. Although most of his memories were gone, the Frostborn remembered that Alduin and all of the dragons were his enemies. He knew the ferocious, dominating nature of the dragons would destroy the new world as he knew it, and so he picked up a sword and prepared to hunt down the World Eater. The Frostborn has a little recollection of his life before his icy prison, and so he has to learn how to fight all over again. He likes the feel of heavy armor, as it reminds him of the ice that was wrapped around him for millennia, and he finds the feel of a two-handed axe to be quite familiar. As time goes on, he regains some of his memories of how he came to be trapped inside of that icy prison, and so he begins to tap into the magical arts of destruction and conjuration. Enchanting also became interesting to him, as he could relate to the idea of a soul being trapped in an ice-like substance. Though he does not fully understand what happens to the souls he uses, he likes to imagine they're fighting along with him in battle. Later on, alchemy became of interest to him, and so he creates powerful frost poisons to aid him in combating the toughest of foes. And now for the gear. Early on, the Frostborn wears any heavy armor he can get his hands on, wearing a full set to cover his arms, feet, chest, and face. Eventually he finds the mysterious Stalrim, which he is determined to fashion into weapons and armor. Although he originally wore a full set of the icy armor, the Frostborn eventually replaces the headpiece with the mask of his old captor, Dukan, the Dragon Priest. He wears the mask as a trophy, signifying his victory over the one who tortured him for so many years. His axe is named Ice Wraith, a name he barely remembers but cannot place its origins. It helps heal the Frostborn in battle while also freezing his opponents. And now for the gameplay. The Frostborn is a kind-hearted man, wanting to help others as he knows what it's like to feel unbearable cruelty. As he continues to help people across Skyrim, he tries to uncover more about the era he lives in, as well as what happened to his distant past. Once he kills Mirmulnir, finally avenging Sarah, the Frostborn decides that he should wipe out all of the dragons so they can never ruin another life again. In combat, the Frostborn will summon 3 Frost Atronachs if he doesn't have his 2 Frost Thralls by his side. From a distance, he will bombard his enemies with potent ice magic, but should they get past his Atronachs or are attacking from another direction, he will draw his mighty Ice Wraith and cut down his enemies in an icy fury. And now for the powers used by the mighty Frostborn. Cold Storm is simple but effective. It's enacted by the Frostborn calling down a great thunderstorm, while channeling his frost powers into a potent attack. He only uses this power when traveling alone, and in isolated areas away from the innocent. Icy Grave is performed against many enemies at once. The Frostborn will become ethereal, summon his full strength, and unleash a blizzard upon the surrounding enemies. He then doubles the impact by channeling his frozen powers into an additional blizzard. Last but not least, we have the Frost Prince. This power is performed by the Frostborn taking on his dragon aspect, summoning a frost cloak, conjuring his Atronachs, and attacking with the full power of Ice Wraith. And now for the timeline. After defeating Mirmulnir and shouting for the first time in thousands of years, the Frostborn returns to Whiterun, and after being made the Jarl's Thane, he sees the woman who is to be his housecarl. Though her name had changed, the Frostborn knew it was her. Her face, her voice, her body. It was his wife Sarah, now called Lydia. He did not hesitate to ask her to follow him, and over the next few weeks she aided him in many battles against bandits and dragons alike. But the fear of losing her again was too great, and the Frostborn began to study the arcane art of enchanting and alchemy. With his newfound knowledge, the Frostborn created a powerful enchantment that would prevent his wife from ever being killed again. With Lydia's life secured, the Frostborn continued to hone his skills in cryomancy, eventually becoming the Archmage of Winterhold. From there, he returned to Whiterun and joined the Companions. He is in awe of their power of the werewolf and eagerly accepts the gift. However, after that brutal first night, when he shed innocent blood, he frantically seeks a new way to cure himself of the affliction. He eventually cures not only himself, but Kodlak as well. As Harbinger, the Frostborn does his absolute best to ensure safety in Whiterun, and sends companions throughout Skyrim to help those in need. He is frequently attacked by a group of cultists, and soon the Frostborn is left with no choice but to head to Solstheim. There, on the Ashy Island, the Frostborn discovers the strange material, Stalrim. He learns what he can about it before crafting a set of unique armor. As he continues to search for clues about this Mirak, the Frostborn discovers something else. He discovers the one who tortured him so long ago, Dukan. He slays the old foe and takes the mask as a trophy, signifying his triumph over the Dragon Priest. Soon after, the Frostborn faces Mirak for the first time. Despite his best efforts, the Frostborn is no match for Mirak and his powers. He is forced to accept help from Hermaeus Mora, and only then does he obtain the strength he needs to destroy Mirak. When he returns to Solstheim, the Frostborn discovers that the dragon menace has become too great to handle alone, and he is forced to bring others into the fight. He pairs up with Delphine, and over the next week discovers that Alduin has been resurrecting deceased dragons. Many weeks later, the Frostborn finally has a plan to destroy the World Eater. However, when he meets the leader of the Greybeards, he is baffled. Parthenax is a dragon, and one who the Frostborn had seen kill many innocent people thousands of years ago. He pushes back his anger and hatred, and the old grey dragon helps the Frostborn in recovering ancient knowledge in order to defeat Alduin. With the knowledge he needs, the Frostborn continues his plan. He brings the civil war to a halt as he summons the warring sides to High Hrothgar for a temporary truce. Though he hates the Stormcloaks due to their barbaric nature, and their seat of power being that awful city, Windhelm, he tries to be as fair as possible in the negotiations. Finally, the war is settled, for a time, and Delphine and Esbern speak to the Frostborn concerning Parthenax. Despite his help, even the Frostborn is skeptical on why the old dragon would help them. He speaks with the Greybeards and then with Parthenax, hoping that they may shed some more light on the situation. But unfortunately, Parthenax's own words seal his fate. The blades are wise not to trust me. I would not trust another Dova. Not a day goes by when I am not tempted by my inborn nature. It is then that the Frostborn knows what he must do. Parthenax does not put up much of a fight, and the Frostborn destroys the old dragon, absorbing his soul. He knows that he cannot return to the Greybeards, and so he heads to Whiterun to call Odahviing. The mighty dragon is quickly captured, and the Frostborn commands him to take him to Sovngarde. It is there, in the land of the dead, that the Frostborn finally has his revenge. He destroys Alduin, but does not absorb his soul. He questions why, and soon finds himself reading all manner of books in search of answers to this question. As far as the world knew, Skyrim was safe. Miraak was defeated, and Alduin was no more. But something continued to gnaw at the Frostborn. Why hadn't he absorbed Alduin's soul when he died? He searched for answers and eventually found it. Alduin had neglected his duties as the World Eater, and instead desired to dominate and rule the world, opposing his named nature. When Alduin died, Akatosh reclaimed his soul so that he could remake him into the World Eater he was meant to be. The Frostborn's rage grew, and he began to assemble an army. He took the blades, and with the use of magic and potions, had turned them into hybrids, combining them with frost Atronachs. He did the same with the many remains of dragons he had left scattered across Skyrim. He then sought answers to entering the realm of the gods, and soon construction began on an Aedric gate. Once the gate was finished, the Frostborn was ready. With an army of Frostblades and undead ice drakes, the Frostborn marched into the realm of the Divines. The battle was terrible and shook all of creation. Many Frostblades fell, but the Frostborn was determined. He would not let his hard work to save Nirn be in vain. Akatosh was the one who desired the world to end, and the other Divines were just as guilty. Soon, only the Frostborn and Akatosh were left standing. Their battle went on for days, and Akatosh had come out on top. The chief of the Divines plunged his spear into the chest of the Frostborn, and there he died. Akatosh fell to his knees, bloodied and weakened, but his victory was short-lived. The divine spear had only released the Frostborn from his mortal shell, now giving him the body of a true dove. He was 3 times the size of Alduin. The very ground below him froze with every step he took, and his eyes burned cold. Akatosh had little time to react before the Frostborn bit his head clean off. Akatosh's soul was absorbed into the Frostborn, and so too was the soul of Alduin. The Divines were dead, and the Frostborn now possessed their powers. He revived his army, and all rejoiced when they saw their master at full power. But their war was not over yet. With Akatosh defeated, the realms of Oblivion were free to invade Nirn. Unlike the Aedra, however, the Frostborn would not sit idly by. He led his armies back to Nirn and began to wipe out the Daedric invaders. First to invade was Molag Bal, but the newly enhanced armies of the Frostborn were more formidable than he had expected. Within a week, Molag Bal was destroyed, and Mehrunes Dagon followed shortly after. Other Daedric princes, such as Hermaeus Mora, Boethia, and Jiggalag, tried to invade, but they too were destroyed effortlessly by the Frostborn and his armies. All of Nirn was safe, and the remaining Daedra were too terrified to dare to invade or meddle in the lives of mortals. The Frostborn was revered as a god, but unlike the former Aedra, he would not reside in another plane. High Hrothgar was built into a mighty palace, and the Frostborn resided at the throat of the world, proclaimed and worshipped as a new god, Ysmir, the dragon god of frost, war, and order. At the throat of the world, Ysmir remade some of the dragons whom he had slain. Parthenax was the first he remade, but he was changed to mere Kunonik, ally, light, wise, forever removing the savage and destructive nature of Parthenax. He taught the Greybeards the new way of the voice, and also taught it to the Frostblades, so that should another evil ever invade, the armies of Ysmir would be more than ready. We hope you enjoyed our latest Skyrim build, the Frostborn. If you haven't already, then please hit that like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon to be notified of future videos. Have a wonderful rest of your week, everyone, and we'll see you all here next time on the Morbid Veil.